What if everything you thought you knew about the dawn of civilization was wrong? What if the rise of agriculture, the very foundation of modern life, was not humanity's great leap forward, but a trap? Welcome to Against the Grain, a deep history of the earliest states by James C. Scott. This groundbreaking book challenges the conventional story of human progress, turning our assumptions about farming, states, and civilization upside down. Today we're diving into Scott's provocative argument that the first states were not the result of enlightened progress, but systems of control and exploitation. Get ready to rethink everything you know about the ancient world. We've all heard the story humans roamed as hunter-gatherers for millennia, scraping by in small groups, living short and brutal lives. Then, around 10,000 years ago, the agricultural revolution came along. We started farming, built cities, and eventually created complex states. Progress, right? Not so fast, says Scott. According to Against the Grain, this narrative is more myth than reality. Sure, farming allowed us to grow more food, but it came at a massive cost. Let's break it down. Scott's first big claim is that early agriculture was less a blessing and more a curse. Before farming, hunter-gatherers enjoyed a varied diet, worked fewer hours, and avoided many diseases. But with the rise of crops like wheat, rice, and barley, people became dependent on just a few food sources. This led to malnutrition, famine, and a massive decline in health. And here's the kicker: early states didn't arise to help people, they emerged to exploit them. Farming made it easier to tax, control, and coerce. Think about it. You can't tax a hunter-gatherer who moves every season, but a farmer tied to a field? That's a bureaucrat's dream. Scott argues that states like Mesopotamia's weren't built by free people coming together. They were powered by forced labor, slavery, and taxation, what Scott calls grain as the original tax base. Farming made surplus possible, and surplus made control inevitable. And it wasn't just about food. Sedentary life in early states also brought new problems: overcrowding, disease, and violence. Living in close quarters with other people and livestock led to epidemics that didn't exist in hunter-gatherer societies. Plus, the concentration of wealth in cities led to inequality and conflict. The so-called civilization of early states was anything but civilized for most people. The early state was a fragile experiment, prone to collapse and dependent on exploitation. So, if early states were so miserable, why didn't people just leave? Well, they did. A lot. Scott points out that many people resisted state control by fleeing to the hills or forests, living as what he calls barbarians. These so-called uncivilized people often had healthier lives than those in the cities. They weren't backward, they were just avoiding exploitation. In fact, much of human history is a tug-of-war between states trying to control people and people trying to escape. Scott's work reminds us that history isn't just about kings and empires, it's also about the millions of people who resisted them. The themes Scott explores in Against the Grain aren't just relics of the past, they're very much alive today. Take, for instance, the modern-day movements that seek to break free from state control and societal norms. From off-grid living and eco-villages to digital nomads and intentional communities, people are still finding ways to resist the pressures of modern civilization. These communities often prioritize independence, mutual aid, and a stronger community, echoing the lifestyles of those who fled to the hills and forests centuries ago. Moreover, the rise of technology has brought new forms of resistance. Decentralized platforms, cryptocurrencies, and encrypted communication are tools used by those who wish to maintain their autonomy in an increasingly surveilled world. Just as people once evaded the reach of ancient states, today's digital rebels seek to carve out spaces of freedom and privacy. Scott's insights remind us that human ingenuity in the face of control is a constant. Whether through physical relocation or digital innovation, The desire to live on one's own terms and escape from exploitation remains a powerful force. These modern echoes show that the struggle between control and freedom is as relevant now as it was thousands of years ago. So, as we navigate the complexities of contemporary life, let's not forget the lessons from the past. They remind us that alternatives to the status quo have always existed and always will. The question is, are we willing to explore them? Now let's move on to our final thoughts and takeaways from Scott's thought-provoking work. So, what can we learn from Against the Grain? For one, progress isn't always what it seems. The rise of civilization came with enormous costs. Costs we're still paying today in the form of inequality, environmental destruction, and systems of control. Scott's book isn't just about the past, it's a wake-up call for the present. It forces us to question what we've been told about civilization and reminds us that other ways of living have always existed. So, the next time you hear someone talk about the march of progress, maybe ask progress for whom? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with Scott's take on early civilization? Until next time, stay curious.